I always knew I was the odd one out. My parents had two golden children, my sister Heather and my brother Jason. Heather was the star student who went to Yale. Jason was the charming athlete who became a lawyer. And me? I was the mistake. The kid they had when they were already done. The one who was never really included in the family photos unless someone remembered. I grew up eating leftovers while they went out to dinner. Hand-me-downs, while Heather and Jason got brand new everything. I didn't even have a room of my own until I was 16. Before that, I slept in the basement. But I told myself it didn't matter. I worked, I saved, and I got out. I built my own life from scratch. I didn't need them, or so I thought, until Mom passed away. She was the last of my parents still alive. Dad had died a few years earlier, and Heather immediately took over everything. The estate, the lawyers, the funeral. "We'll let you know what happens," she said in an email. Not even a call. Just a cold, short line that felt like the final nail in the coffin of our relationship. I showed up to the reading of the will more out of curiosity than hope. I expected nothing, and that's exactly what I got. All assets, including the family home, financial holdings, and personal effects, the lawyer read, are to be divided between Heather and Jason. I blinked. "What about me?" I asked. Heather didn't even flinch. "You never really needed us anyway." That's when she leaned close and whispered those words I'll never forget. "You're just not really part of this family." I walked out. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just left. But inside, something was boiling. They thought they could cut me out. They thought I'd just take it. But they were wrong. I wasn't the weak one anymore. And I was going to make them regret ever pushing me aside. I spent the next few weeks letting the dust settle. Heather and Jason thought I'd disappeared. Again. But I wasn't gone. I was watching, listening, waiting. I knew I couldn't fight them in court. The will was airtight, probably rewritten by Jason himself. But here's the thing about people who lie and cheat their way through life. They always leave cracks. And my sister? She was practically made of them. I started with public records. It wasn't hard. Heather had transferred the deed to the family house into her own name, just days after the funeral. Technically illegal. The will hadn't been executed yet. That was my first lead. But it got better. I found out she also moved over $150,000 from Mom's accounts into a maintenance fund for the house. The problem? That account didn't exist before Mom died. It was created 2 weeks later under a shell LLC. Guess who owned the LLC? Heather. I smiled for the first time in weeks. I wasn't a lawyer, but I'd been in tech long enough to know how to dig. I pulled bank statements, archived web pages, LLC filings, even metadata from PDFs she didn't know were still online. And then I hit the jackpot. An email from my mom 6 months before her death, sent to Heather and Jason. It said, "I want all 3 of you to share what's left. Promise me no one gets cut out." It was the smoking gun. I printed everything, compiled it, sent a quiet tip to the IRS just to be safe. But I still needed one last thing, something that would break Heather's grip on the legacy she stole. And that's when I remembered the old storage unit, the one Mom kept downtown. No one had touched it in years. I still had the key.
I drove to the unit that same night, heart racing, palms sweating. The place was exactly how I remembered, dusty, silent, forgotten. I slid the key in and lifted the door slowly, the groan of metal echoing in the empty corridor. Inside were boxes, dozens of them, old furniture, family photo albums, and a metal filing cabinet I'd never seen before. Locked, of course. I broke it open with a tire iron I kept in my trunk. Inside were folders, neatly labeled, stacked in order. Taxes, medical records, handwritten letters from Mom, and one folder, right at the back, labeled simply, Will, Original. My hand shook as I opened it. What I found made my knees go weak. It was the original version of my mother's will. Handwritten, dated a year before her death, notarized. And in it, she'd split everything evenly between me, Heather, and Jason. No mention of any updates, no revocation, nothing. Just her words, clear as day. To my children, I leave what remains of my life and legacy. Share it. Don't let it divide you. But Heather had obviously made sure that it did divide us. She must have coerced or manipulated Mom into rewriting it later, possibly when her health was declining. That's elder abuse. And this original will? It was a legal bombshell. I called a lawyer the next morning. He nearly dropped his coffee when I showed him the documents. If this holds up, he said, we're not just talking reversal, we're talking criminal investigation. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel vindication. Not yet. But I felt the shift, the tide turning. Heather had lied, and now I had the truth. I gave my lawyer everything, let him start the legal gears turning quietly. Meanwhile, I kept calm, pretended like I'd given up. Heather was planning to sell the house, and Jason was helping her renovate it. I let them waste their money, let them believe they were in the clear. I just needed to time it right, because once this went to court, everything would come crashing down on them, and I wanted front row seats.
Heather kept gloating, posting pictures online of the house remodel, talking to realtors, bragging to friends about finally getting what she deserved. Jason followed her like a puppy, clearly thinking he was going to get a cut. I stayed silent, calm, patient, because my lawyer was building a bombshell case. The original will, backed by expert handwriting analysis, notarization verification, and testimonies from Mom's old friends confirming she never mentioned changing her wishes, was enough to cast major doubt on the updated version Heather submitted. Then the other stuff came out. The nurse my lawyer contacted admitted, in writing, that Heather had taken Mom to a different notary a month before she died. Mom was heavily medicated, barely coherent, and somehow a new will was drawn up naming Heather sole beneficiary. That's not just shady, that's fraud, elder exploitation, possibly even forgery. We filed the petition to contest the will quietly. The court date was set. Heather didn't see it coming. I showed up in court, and the look on her face when she saw me with a lawyer said it all. Jason was confused. Heather tried to brush it off like a misunderstanding, until the judge read the original will out loud. Heather's face went white. My lawyer laid out everything: the original will, the witness statements, the suspicious notary visit, Mom's fragile medical state. Heather stuttered, claiming Mom changed her mind, but she had no witnesses, no real defense. Then the judge said the words I'd been waiting for. Pending final verification, the court finds cause to suspend execution of the contested will and recognize the previously filed testament as valid. Heather gasped. Jason looked like he'd just been hit by a train. And I stood there quietly as the truth crushed her fake world. All her plans to sell the house? Gone. The money she funneled into renovations? Lost. Because now the estate would be split 3 ways, just like Mom wanted. But I wasn't done. Heather committed a crime. I filed charges: elder financial abuse, forgery. The investigation opened within weeks, and while I didn't know if she'd go to jail, I knew one thing for sure: she would never, ever get away with it quietly. Heather called me the next day, sobbing. Not angry, scared. The investigator had shown up at her door, asking about the notary, the documents, Mom's medication. She stammered through a half-hearted apology, saying she didn't mean for things to go this far. She even had the nerve to say, "It was always supposed to be me. You were just the backup." I hung up. I was done listening to her lies. Jason messaged me too, asking if I could drop the charges for the sake of the family. I didn't even reply. For years, I'd been the quiet one, the overlooked one, the one whom Mom leaned on but who never asked for credit. Heather thought she could use that, twist it, pretend like her greed was justified. But the moment she forged that will, she made her choice. And now the consequences were coming. Fast. The DA pursued the elder abuse charge seriously. They interviewed the nurse again, found out Heather had taken Mom's ID, used it to push the documents through. The notary turned over logs that showed inconsistencies. My lawyer handed it all to the court. Heather's attorney tried to settle. They offered to drop her claim, walk away from everything if I'd stop the criminal process. I said no. She wanted to erase me, so I let her watch me erase everything she stole. She lost her share of the estate. She was forced to pay back part of what she spent on renovations, money that wasn't hers. And the worst part? Her reputation. Everyone in town knew. Friends stopped answering her calls. Jason, he vanished. Her dream house sat half-finished, cold and empty. And me? I restored the home to what Mom wanted. I split the inheritance fairly, with the cousin Mom had added and with the local charity she named in her will. I didn't do it for revenge. I did it because it was right. But if I'm being honest, hearing Heather cry in court as they read the charges, yeah, that felt like justice. Because when someone tries to bury you, sometimes the best revenge is handing them the shovel.